Looking at Chapter 5 and the Pacific, it'll be starting with 3 maps, and then more will be dropped in the spring. It's quite a nice amount of content, and if the maps are good, I'll be happy. Now, I've done previous videos on this before, looking at the maps that we will be getting. 2 are known, with Iwo Jima and Wake Island. The other 2 aren't so well known, but there'll be more details on those coming soon. Battlefield 1942 actually had Iwo Jima as a map, and it was based around conquest assault, with the Americans having to spawn on the USS Enterprise aircraft carrier and another battleship. They would then try to control the beach and the island. You had access to aircraft, tanks and naval landing crafts. We all know Wake Island is coming along too, and most of you will have played that map on Battlefield 1942, Battlefield 2, where it was known as Wake Island 2007, Wake Island 2142, Battlefield 1943, and of course, Battlefield 3. It takes place on the Wake Atoll in the Pacific Ocean, and if DICE really focus on bringing a mixture of vehicle and infantry gameplay, many will enjoy it. Now, this video is looking at Lost Islands on Battlefield 4. Right after I played Paracel Storm in the last Battlefield 4 gameplay video, I jumped onto a different server for another attack boat fix. This thing is deadly, but I did have an issue. As you'll see later in the video, the enemy team actually had a really good attack jet pilot, and he was really intent on smashing all of our attack boats. That's the one thing that I really miss on Battlefield 4, and I don't know if you remember, but some of the modes that you used to play, especially Conquest Assault, would actually take place in that carrier. Now, I can't remember exactly if it was Rush that used to utilise a bit of it, but essentially what would happen is you'd have infantry fighting it out within that carrier, a couple of RIB boats, maybe a scout helicopter and stuff like that outside. The hectic nature of the infantry gameplay with people flying across the water on those RIB boats is just great fun to watch. I couldn't get any gameplay of it because unfortunately you just can't find a server for that anymore, but Naval Strike as a DLC is still going strong. From a geographical point of view, Lost Islands is not actually in the Pacific Ocean, although it does kind of give you that feeling. It is in fact in the South China Sea, and this lines up with the narrative that DICE went with Battlefield 4, with the Americans, Russians and Chinese all battling it out over pieces of land in this futuristic World War scenario. The likes of Iwo Jima is roughly 2,500 kilometers to the east of Lost Islands, whilst Wake Island, both of these being real locations, is more than 5 to 6 kilometers out into the Pacific. DICE have quite a bit of creative freedom when it comes to locations in Battlefield 4, as the entire game is make-believe. However, they did try and link up some real-life locations to make it seem a bit more realistic. For example, the dish on Rogue Transmission is in fact a real location, again not based in China, I think it's based in Puerto Rico, but it is in fact a real thing. In Battlefield 5, DICE are tied down to the real thing a little more. They don't exactly follow history to a T in BF5, but the locations, well, they can't just make up a battle. They've set themselves this challenge of focusing on battles that did happen, maybe lesser known battles, but definitely real things. Lost Islands was released in April 2014, or at least around that period, and it's one of the better maps, I think, in that Naval Strike DLC. The other maps are great, but I feel like Lost Islands does this naval warfare really, really well. Not very many people know, but the Levolution is on the centre of this map. You can go up to that crashed plane on Charlie and detonate a load of spilled fuel that will cause a large explosion. Quite interesting at the start of a match. If somebody or a pile of enemies are on the flag, you blast it before anybody else and you get yourself a load of kills. Something that I did want to talk about in this video relates to the beauty of Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4 graphics are not something that get talked about enough in my opinion. Many people like to speak about Battlefield 1 looking incredible, which it does, and Battlefield 5 being a very good looking game, which is debatable. Can look really good, but sometimes when you're playing it doesn't quite hit the heights of Battlefield 1. Some of the best looking maps though, in my opinion in the Battlefield franchise, are in Battlefield 4. It's not the best looking game, but parts of it are really special. Giants of Karelia, Operation Mortar and Altai Range are just a few that I'd mention as visually stunning, but Lost Islands also ranks really highly. It's something you don't often see in a Battlefield game. The little waterfall on A flag, the plane crash on C flag, the bunkers on E flag, this map does a great job of bringing interesting, good-looking warfare to an island environment. This is something that DICE really need to aim for in the upcoming Pacific Chapter 5 update in Battlefield 5. Yes, the maps are probably already made. I haven't played them yet. I may get a chance to test them before they come out, as DICE often do with these maps, and hopefully I'll be reporting back some really good information to you guys. Wake Island and Iwo Jima, we know what they're going to be like, but the other two maps, they have a bit of freedom with where they place them. This Lost Island setup is really quite fun. Let's take a closer look at the attack boat gameplay on Lost Islands then. You've probably been watching it for a few minutes as I try my best to hit some TVs and do a good job of capping flags in the attack boat. It can be very difficult on this map to be successful in the attack boat, especially against a good jet pilot on the enemy team who hasn't been bothering us for a little while, as my friend jumped up in the stealth jet to pester him. I'm not entirely optimistic when it comes to BF5 and the naval warfare we may get, but there is so much DICE could potentially learn from BF4 if they were to include some. The attack boats are not insanely powerful on Lost Islands. They are good, don't get me wrong, vehicles in BF4 are very strong, but they're not unkillable. Not very many people camp in BF4 with vehicles, and if they do, they're usually easy targets to take out. I wouldn't say either that the attack boats are the strongest vehicle on the map. That has to be given to the attack jet and maybe even the scout helicopter, both of which can do insane amounts of damage. That's probably the biggest problem I have with Battlefield 4 naval warfare maps, and that's the air vehicles being so strong. It can make life very difficult, as you can see in the background, and as you'll have seen in a few clips in this video. I just don't have the accuracy to take down the attack jet. I don't have the TV accuracy. It's very easy to dodge a TV in the attack jet. It looks like they're just dodging to the side, and that's pretty much all they do. Just move the mouse, just move a little bit and you get away. But they're much faster than you can turn a TV, so you have to predict with the TV. And that just takes a lot of intuition, basically a lot of playtime to get good with that. I switch out to the burst cannon just to drop a bit of damage towards air vehicles, and that does really help, the burst cannon being incredibly effective versus air vehicles. But as I said, the attack jet will reign supreme if they have a good pilot. Cover for infantry is another thing that I feel as if Lost Islands doesn't do incredibly well, and it's why it's not one of the best maps on the game. Sometimes you need to have a map that is open, sure, it's large-scale battlefield, vehicles, infantry, everything going on at once. I love that. It's what Battlefield does the best. It's what BF4 did really, really well. You also have to have moments, though, where infantry can just fight each other. And you'll have a small flag that is just dedicated to infantry gameplay. Maybe you could squeeze a couple of quad bikes in there. I'm talking about the sort of stuff we see on Zavod underneath those central flags. It's very infantry focused. Maybe you're looking at Hammerhead with the central part of that map, or Hangar 21 with the top part being infantry based, although that's not a great map in my opinion at all. These areas where it's just infantry focused. So you've got a mixture of both infantry and the vehicle gameplay, and not vehicles farming infantry over and over. That's what Battlefield 4 lacked in some aspects. In other aspects they got it spot on. I would say that in BF5 it's probably a similar situation. Some maps like Panzerstorm could be absolutely epic, and some people do love them, but my biggest gripe with those maps is you spend a lot of time running from flag to flag, and when you do get to a flag there's not really anywhere to go. You're just standing there with tanks blasting out every bit of cover there is, and what, you can dig a hole in the ground and sit in it. It's not exactly my cup of tea when it comes to that style of a conquest map. You can see what I'm doing now in the background is trying to track this attack jet with the burst cannon. It's an effective weapon. I haven't used this burst cannon probably in a couple of years. Battlefield 4 being as old as it is, I tend to stick with a loadout, and that's about it. I miss a TV by the smallest of margins. So close against the attack jet. He was shifting as well, he was really moving. And this is where I'm just trying to get him within range. I know where I am on the map, I'm kind of in cover. I spot him in the distance. It takes me a couple of TVs just to get my eye in. That was so close to taking him down. I think I was at the max range of the TV missile, so either I missed and I max ranged it, or I just dusted. This one though, again, right at the range, and it looks like I missed, but you look into the distance and I actually hit it, and that's a bug with the TV missile in Battlefield 4. if you kill somebody right at the range of the TV missile when it goes into that static sort of picture, you don't get credited with the kill in the kill feed. You do get the kill, I believe, on the scoreboard, but it doesn't tell you who killed you in the kill feed. He should have seen who killed him as well on the map. It should come up with my attack boat killing him. Often you'll see the TV missile explode as well when you fire it out of an attack helicopter, almost killing yourself. That's another bug with it. It's very odd, and they tried a lot of things to try and fix that, but never quite managed to. That being said, I got the kill on the attack jet. That's one of my most satisfying TV missiles in a long, long time on this game. Now we're on the central flag, Charlie objective, quite far through the match here. This is one of the most interesting flags on the game. It's very simple. It's just a couple of bits of debris from this plane crash. If you've got an attack boat sitting here like I am, you can do a lot of damage against infantry players that try and push you. The burst cannon is great versus single infantry targets. Not so good against groups because of the reload and the bursts not being as effective with the splash. If I was playing though against a couple of enemies, I'd definitely go burst cannon every time. Plus the fact it can blast air vehicles, which is mega important on maps like this. The range is pretty decent. You can do damage as well at range, but this is where it's exceptionally good. Spot a scout helicopter in the distance, line up the TV, and then if I was used to aiming this thing, I'd have done him in one burst. He eventually does go down. Essentially, you're an anti-everything cannon in this attack boat. I don't have the issue that I had in the last round on Parasol Storm, if you remember watching that, where I had people trying to steal my attack boat. In this one, I kind of got a bit more lucky, I suppose. I just sat in it, had a friend who would repair me, and tried my luck if I had to jump out and repair. When I died, somebody did steal it, I think, but I was going to die anyway, so it didn't really annoy me. That is something, though, that DICE really have to work at in future games. I was actually playing on a modded Battlefield 4 server the other day, where if you click the Get Out option on the Comoros, the gunner is kicked out of your tank. The game will kick him out because somebody's modified the files or done something weird. Which is annoying to some extent, but also interesting to see that it is an actual option on the game to boot somebody out that you don't want in your vehicle. Interesting though. Let me know if you've seen that on Battlefield 4. So thanks for watching this gameplay video on Battlefield 4. Lost Islands, a map that we don't see enough on Battlefield 4 rotations. Really good fun. Let me know if you're enjoying the game, still playing it, or are you waiting for the Pacific to drop in Battlefield 5. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.